And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Welcome to the aviation segment of the Alaska Weather Show. Up first for Tuesday morning, IFR here. Out over the Aleutians with that next big storm coming in. Look by tomorrow afternoon, IFR spreading from Adak all the way in toward Unalaska and Dutch Harbor. And then south to north flow here, keeping areas of IFR in along the west coast, and especially here, Koyukuk Valley up to the crest of the Brooks Range. North of the mountains, VFR for the north slope out to the eastern Arctic coast. And then a system tracking northeastward here, bringing IFR into the eastern Gulf of Alaska, sliding into the northern Panhandle, back across Yakutat into the eastern Copper River Basin, followed by some VFR for Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, and back toward the park up there, marginal for Kodiak Island. For the afternoon, IFR here, the Copper River Basin, down across Yakutat, into the northern Panhandle with marginal VFR now for the southern southeast coast, some IFR or VFR here over the Gulf of Alaska up into Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet area down into Kamishak Bay, and marginal for Kodiak Island. Some IFR lingering up here with southerly flow in the trough here, keeping it lower there for the south slopes of the Brooks Range, northern Koyukuk Valley, into the Kobuk Valley here to the northwest coast, and down into the Seward Peninsula. And then the big storm out here pushing IFR eastward there into the western Alaska Peninsula, northward to about St. George Island or so, and starting to improve there behind the front, but not too much there. You got to get farther out to the west to see some VFR towards Shimei and that too. And then for Wednesday morning, staying pretty good up here over the North Slope and the Arctic coast with mostly VFR conditions there. Again, along and south of the Brooks Range into the Kobuk Valley and across the southern Seward Peninsula, band of IFR there. And then we got with the storm system here tracking east, we got three distinct zones of IFR associated with it. One slipping on up across Kodiak Island, another one here over the Fox Islands, the Alaska Peninsula, and the third one up in this area from the Auckland Mountains or so here westward across the Delta to just north of the Pribilofs. And not too bad here to the east. Areas of marginal VFR for the southeast coast, VFR for the most of Susitna Valley, all of the Matanuska Valley, Prince William Sound, and Copper River Basin, central interior, south of the Yukon River looking good. And for the afternoon, VFR, Arctic coast, North Slope, still some IFR along the Brooks Range though, but not as much, although it's a little farther, well, not too much farther to the east, is sort of dissipating in place there slowly. IFR along the western Alaska Range, up across the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, into southwest Copper River Basin here, but IFR covering Fognak, actually the Barren Islands and all of Kodiak Island, and mostly VFR now for the southeast coast, and mostly marginal out west there for the Bering Sea and the central and eastern Aleutians. And in Tuvik tomorrow, look for marginal VFR with IFR in the southern approach, probably VFR in the north side. Same pattern, same forecast for Adigan as well, with the IFR would be on the southern entrance. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR at times throughout the day, mostly marginal for rainy, and marginal VFR also in the forecast for windy. And Isabel, Mentasta, occasional IFR there for that pass, and Tanita, marginal VFR. And for Portage here, not really indicating a trend from low to better conditions, just occasional marginal VFR with VFR at other times throughout the entire day. And Chilkoot and White look mostly IFR. Freezing levels here, 1 to 2,000 feet over the northern interior, but 2,000 feet all the way down across the western Alaska Range. Warming here as you go east and southeast with 10 to 12,000 foot freezing levels over the southern southeast coast, about 4,000 feet there over the Aleutians. And icing here, we've got a band with a system tracking northeastward here. Look for some considerable moderate rime icing there coming across mostly the Yakutat area there with lesser threats up over the southeast part of the state. And then the big storm out here over the Aleutians or just south there, pushing a band of considerable moderate icing into the Well, actually from the Fox Islands, sliding eastward into the Alaska Peninsula, and a little bit to the north there, barely reaching the Pribilof Islands. And for the jet stream, strong low pressure here at 33,000 feet out over the central Aleutians. But looking at westerly wind flow here, ahead of that at 100 knots here across the southwest interior. And then sweeping around, we got a trough swinging northeastward here into the Copper River Basin or so, and that puts 135 knot west-southwest jet into the northern panhandle. And at 9,000 feet, now you can see a low center at this elevation here over the eastern Alaska Range, tracking northeastward throughout the day to about this position in the afternoon. And the northern southeast coast, west-southwesterlies, 55 knots. And then we've got southwest winds here across the northern part of the state, western Brooks Range to the eastern Arctic coast, mostly at 40 knots, a little lighter out toward Barter Island and Dead Horse in those areas. And then the big storm here over the eastern Aleutians, southeast winds, 55 knots there on Alaska Island into the Alaska Peninsula, north winds 55 knots just over Adak and Atka. And at 3,000 feet, even stronger winds as you come down to this elevation. In advance of the front, 65 knot southeast winds there across the Fox Islands, starting to edge in toward False Pass. And then much lighter, as you can see, over the northern Bering Sea. And then this low up here over the Chukchi Sea, just bringing maybe 30 knot southwest winds to the northwest coast. They're actually Cape Lisburne, Point Hope area. Across the Gulf of Alaska into the northern panhandle, westerly to southwest winds, 40 to 45 knots. Turbulence, look for a considerable moderate here from about Cape St. Elias or Cordova, so right on down the southeast coast. Not too bad over the interior, and a little bit of isolated moderate chop up there for the Point Lay to Point Hope area, and then a big area of considerable moderate turbulence expected here, slipping on up into the Alaska Peninsula, extending all the way back to almost Amchitka Island.